All right, welcome to this week's episode of Truth Unveiled podcast, or the we actually have two in a row, which is pretty amazing for us lately. So that's good, and we're glad to have you guys here. We hope to spur on some thought, and so Cody and I are excited to be back.
Heck yeah, good to see y'all, and hope you guys enjoy the show. We got some real cool things about history, the Smithsonian, cover-ups, giants.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's interesting, I thought about doing this program today because I actually had a little discussion with someone because recently the President of the United States has asked to go in or told the Smithsonian they needed to change some things. And so the big outcry right now is that he's trying to change history. And as I looked into that, I found out that really wasn't the case. It's just that the history that's been presented in the last several years of the Smithsonian has been very politicized. And so I'm going to play just a little clip that kind of explains that real quick, and then we'll come back and then we'll talk about just the Smithsonian. Most of us, when we think about the Smithsonian, we think of this amazing historic museum, that we can all rely on and trust. But it seems like that may not be the case. Alrighty, so let me just play this little clip here and hope you'll... and we have our chat open, so if you have any thoughts or comments, go ahead and do that, and we'll discuss that a bit too as well.
Here's Jillian Michaels, just a absolute kick-ass friend of the show. Somebody who's a total legend in the space. Somebody who's, as of late, become incredibly famous for standing up for women's sports. Pretty much the first person to stand up for women's sports, to get men out of women's sport. Taking on, so she's taken on big battles before. Here she has taken on like a 7-on-1 on CNN, dropping truth bombs about the central lie of the race Marxist, which is that slavery is a uniquely American and white person sin. Of course, this is absolutely absurdist, and the exact opposite is true. But nonetheless, the libs on CNN couldn't hear it and decided to instead scream in Jillian's face. This was the most viral clip on the entire internet yesterday. Here we go.
On into the Smithsonian, he's effectively now has some random person deciding what is appropriate for the Smithsonian to teach in terms of American history, things that don't offend parts of the MAGA base, right? So we're now literally reviewing parts of American history and parts of American culture to make sure it comports with dear leader and what the MAGA
Can we
organization
address
wants.
some of those things that are in there? Because have you looked at some of the things that are being reviewed?
Yeah, slavery was a bad thing that we should talk about.
Okay.
He's
not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not?
He's not. No.
Okay.
He's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you look
at slavery,
let's talk about the fact
slavery in America was.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people were
Do you know
the slave
who
owners.
was the first race to try to end slavery? Well, what's controversial?
I'm very surprised.
This is an extraordinary exercise in historical revisionism.
I'm really surprised.
Do you realize that?
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and who was not.
What I'm trying to tell you is that
in the context of American history.
Okay.
In the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by saying that
it
was white people oppressing black people?
Every single thing is like, oh, no, this is all because white people bad. And that's just not the truth. Like, for example, every single...
Like the scene when Batman comes up through the floor and there's 7 bad guys. And they're like, who is this? And Batman just takes them all out, right? And that was like you on CNN.
Oh my gosh, Benny, I had zero intention, by the way, of going down that road. They ended up taking me down that road. And the point that I was initially going to make is that the installations the administration took umbrage with actually had nothing to do with slavery, because when I first heard that we were going to talk about this, I was a little bit alarmed. I was worried. And I thought, God, what is he trying to erase? So I had my podcast team reach out to the comms team for Trump. And I was like, I really want to understand this. so I can speak on this intelligently and factually. What things are you referencing that are historically incorrect? And they sent me a list. It goes on for pages. I pulled out at least 10 of them for you if you want to go over some of them a little later on, what they are. But none of them actually address slavery that they sent to me. So that's why when I started listing the things, you didn't hear anything about slavery. And this woman made it about slavery. So I was like, actually, he's not trying to erase slavery. And I was about to insert all the things that were not about slavery. And then all of a sudden it turned into, white people are slavers. And I get it. It was one of the worst things in our history. Everyone knows this. However, to paint all white people with this brush, as pretty much every exhibit does, like the white imperialist, it's constant. And again, I could walk you through it in all the different ways and all the different exhibits. But if you take that approach, it's not true, and it breeds more racial division and more anger, when the reality is that 2% of all white Americans owned slaves. So then people, of course, turn around and they don't like that number. So they're like, actually, it was like 25% of all Southern households. I'm like, right, but America was not just the South. And the reason that you're citing the South is because it was banned by that time in every other area of the country as being morally reprehensible. And by the way, let's not forget 350,000 white people did die for the cause of ending slavery. So my point is not that Black people were not enslaved, not that horrible things did not happen and slavery is disgusting. It's that not all white people are bad. And the fact that that is a controversial comment when it's factually 100% accurate is really scary. It's scary as hell.
So that kind of gives us a little bit of the thing behind it. So it's interesting to me, like here is this, of course, the Smithsonian is kind of revered by, I guess, a lot of people. It is the institution that houses our history, and it's so. But it's interesting that this is the issue right now. I think it's as we're seeing the things being revealed. And now this comes up where it's become politicized, and as we look into the Smithsonian a little bit further, we'll find out that this just didn't happen. The history wasn't just changed, and it seems like they're trying to get it back on track, whether they're able to do that or not. But I just thought it was interesting because they're making it all about this. We have this dictator in the office right now that's wanting to bury history, which is to me kind of ludicrous, and it's just pretty interesting.
It is, and it's kind of like a red herring almost. It's like a distraction. Like, look over here, because like this whole cover up of history, history is being covered up, but like Absolutely. They want people talking about slavery and this and that when there's history of biblical accounts, there's history of the giants, there's history of ancient buildings and different things that aren't explained thoroughly. And there's just a huge America, the America that we live in, North America's history, that's been covered up. We get this narrative of Christopher Columbus coming over and meeting with the natives and Thanksgiving and all this stuff. That's a cute little story, but there were big old buildings and structures and pyramids and all this stuff that was here even before that everyone just ignores. And the Grand Canyon as well. Like, you look at the Grand Canyon. I thought it was neat seeing the Grand Canyon up next to, quarries and copper mining and stuff like that. The Grand Canyon looks exactly like a mined canyon, that it was pulled apart and resources were taken out of it. It looks the exact same as an actual canyon that was mined out for certain resources and things like that.
But that's not what we were taught, was it?
It's wild.
We were taught that it was a chasm from the crust of the earth separating, and this whole earth it's evolution basically, and
Yeah.
we're finding out that everything, it seems like anyway, as far as even history and science and probably every other aspect of our culture, is all about making sure we do our best to disprove the Bible or the biblical accounts.
That's what it all narrows down to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what the enemy wants to do. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So he's trying to steal that the reality and get us to think, ancient aliens or whatever the thing is, and we talked a little bit about that last week as well. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it's a brilliant tactic by the enemy because, I kind of visualized it like this. Like, have you ever I went to a gold mining place as a field trip as a kid, and they had these sifters, and they would have layers of sifters, and each grate had a little bit thinner wiring, and it got closer and closer together to where the bottom one was almost just like a screen that you'd put in your windows, that fine.
Yeah.
And it would catch bigger rocks, and the next layer would catch the little bit smaller rocks. The next layer would catch and it's almost like the enemy has set up this sifting sort of structure of lies. And it's like, let's say that atheists get past this part and realize, our history we've been lied to about certain things. Well, the enemy tries to catch him on this layer and say, okay, yeah, you have been lied to, but it's because they don't want you to know about the aliens that you came from. And then if you get past that, it's like, okay, yeah, there were giants, but it wasn't the giants of the Bible. These were giants because there was a race long ago that was from the stars, and they, it's like he tries to tell the story so many different ways, hoping that they don't get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And you hope he catches the people before they get to the very bottom of it. And that's that the Bible is true, and that Jesus is the Son of God. He is who he said he was. And it's crazy. I mean, the enemy will let you get so many truths in there as long as you don't find the ultimate one. As long as you don't find that last truth.
Yeah, when you start getting close, then the new distraction comes. And the new distraction is like, the new revelation of whatever, we found so-and-so's wife, or whatever, Jesus's wife or whatever, all these different things.
Yeah.
So and it's all to disprove, like you said, though, when we start getting close, it's just like, we're seeing it in our system today, our governmental system, we're going here, look over here because this is really more important, and just trying to hide and cover up. Well, I've got a good video here that kind of talks a little bit about Smithsonian. It's about 15 minutes long, but it's really got some great truth in it. And
real quick before we play that, I was also, the whole back in last Easter when they released, I think we showed it on the show possibly. Yeah. Last Easter, they released that they found Jesus's body.
Yeah, exactly.
Under the pyramids. So it's like the enemy will be like, okay, Jesus existed, but obviously he didn't rise from the dead because here's his body under the pyramids. It's like, it's so brilliant of the enemy, but I mean, we can see right through it. But your everyday atheist who's in search of the truth, I mean, those walls are all set up that he might hit one of those. That he might say, oh, Jesus did exist, but I guess there wasn't anything special about him. Like that's wild.
Yeah, maybe he was making the bricks for the pyramids like the other Jews and just got crushed under there somehow.
Yeah.
It could be. All right, so let's look at this next clip here, and then we'll get into the discussion about the whole Smithsonian thing outside of the political realm here. So let's look at this.
What if everything we know about humanity's history is false? There are numerous accounts of artifacts being confiscated by or sent to the Smithsonian, never to be seen again. Is the Smithsonian Institute covering up America's real history?
Hundreds of the reports, literally hundreds of the reports, ends by saying the bones have been taken away by the Smithsonian for further investigation, and they never get heard of again.
Of the millions of pieces the museum owns, only a small fraction are actually displayed. Forget what they want you to see. What is the Smithsonian hiding? Are ancient Egyptian artifacts removed from the Grand Canyon, hidden in a Smithsonian warehouse?
According to reports, the contents of the cave are sent to Washington, but they mysteriously vanish from the historical record.
From stories of giant skeletons to ancient Egyptian artifacts, what is the Smithsonian hiding? At the end of the Indiana Jones film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the legendary Ark of the Covenant, which has been obtained at great cost, is seen being pushed into some government warehouse, never to be seen again. But could such a secret warehouse, filled with hidden treasures and artifacts, really exist? Many researchers insist it does, and believe the Smithsonian Institute is deliberately hiding clues about humanity's true history. It's been called the nation's attic. The Smithsonian Institute warehouses some 150 million items collected over 200 years. Its 19 museums receive nearly 30 million visitors a year. At the time of the Smithsonian's founding, most of the continent had not been archaeologically explored. The powers that be knew that in order to maintain their version of history, they would need a repository for all the artifacts that do not fit their narrative. Could the true purpose of the Smithsonian be to cover up America's real history and replace it with the version the elite want us to believe? Many researchers believe so and point to numerous newspaper articles claiming incredible finds were taken by the Smithsonian, never to be seen again. Stuff like Egyptian artifacts and giant bones. One such article appeared in the Phoenix Gazette back in 1909 that still sparks fascination and curiosity to this day. It told of two explorers from the Smithsonian who stumbled on a mysterious cave in the Grand Canyon, a discovery that would be the link between an ancient world and ours. Inside the cave, according to the article, they found a dug-out maze of geometrically perfect tunnels filled with ancient Egyptian artifacts, including mummies. But how could such an incredible discovery go unnoticed for so long? And why haven't more people heard of it? That's because the two explorers who found it were working for the Smithsonian, and the whole thing was swiftly covered up. The fantastic artifacts and mummies presumably removed.
According to the Gazette, the Smithsonian Institution sent out an archaeologist whose name was Jordan. And Jordan and Kincaid then began exploring these caves.
There are stories and rumors that an expedition was mounted after the discovery, and in one version, 109 truckloads of artifacts were actually removed with very great difficulty from the cavern system.
According to reports, the contents of the cave are sent to Washington, but they mysteriously vanish from the historical record.
It was a front page newspaper story in the 1909 Phoenix Gazette. What they reported was that the Smithsonian Institution was doing excavations in the Grand Canyon. It was being supervised by an archaeologist named Jordan. It all had to do with another explorer named Kincaid, who had been traveling down the Grand Canyon. And what he claimed he discovered was these caverns. Inside these caverns were, he thought, and the Smithsonian then later confirmed, according to the newspaper report, that there were Egyptian artifacts, there were Hindu, Buddhist artifacts from India. They were saying that, there were mummies in there, and that apparently they had a special vault in the Grand Canyon where they buried some of the leaders, the people they had left behind with artifacts and things like that, and that the Smithsonian Institution got involved. They were hauling all this stuff out of these caves, including these mummies, swords, shields, statues, The Jordan, the archaeologist, he was going back to Washington, D.C., back to the Smithsonian, and this is these exciting new discoveries in the Grand Canyon.
Today, the Smithsonian will deny any knowledge of these discoveries, and the area where the cave is supposedly located is now off limits. Investigators are further convinced by the numerous Egyptian names given to areas and geological features of the Grand Canyon. Names such as Isis Temple, Tower of Set, Tower of Ra. But what became of the ancient mummies and Egyptian artifacts that were supposedly taken by the Smithsonian? Could they be stored in some secret warehouse? Many researchers, such as David Hatcher Childress, believe it's a possibility. There are numerous accounts of giant skeletons being found across America, only to be taken away by the Smithsonian. In 1912, archaeological excavations of ancient mounds near Lake Delavan in Wisconsin had found skeletons of extraordinary dimensions, some of them nearly 10 feet tall. On May 4th, the New York Times picked up the story. The article tells of 18 skeletons of a quote-unquote hitherto unknown race and adds that the skulls of the skeletons were unusually large. And that was only one of over a dozen similar stories reported in newspapers in the late 19th, early 20th century.
So in the articles of the giants that were found in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, yeah, they found a lot of bones. There's some photographs in the book that show that they did find something that was phenomenal in size. And I'm not talking one or two cases. There's dozens of them. And they're scattered across the U.S. And many times they're related to what's called today Indian mounds. Either in or near the mound, they found these giant skeletons.
Giant skeletal remains have been found in Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, Kentucky, New York, and other places around the world, many of which found their way to the Smithsonian, where they were never seen again.
Long been fascinated by legends of American giants is David Hatcher Childress.
A number of mounds in the Midwest in America were excavated starting around 1850. And in many cases, they would find skeletons of people who were in excess of 7 feet tall.
The one that was found in Bridal Veil Falls, California by a group of miners, first they found this wall with very intricate hieroglyphics. They assumed that they were finding gold behind the wall. They broke it down and they found this woman holding a child covered with fur and a strange kind of dust. The same tall female mummified remains have been found in Texas. They have been found in Death Valley. They have been found in other parts of California.
These old photographs and newspaper clippings are all that survive of these mysterious giants.
So this is the first level of kind of cover-up conspiracy when the Smithsonian got involved. And they got so involved, it got to a point where they were, as soon as there was any reports, they employed about 200 people to go out to mound sites, to go out and find any reports and to get all the skeletons, to disappear them as quickly as possible. Some years ago, when the Colonel Ben Smith Mound was opened by Professor Norris of the Smithsonian, he found the skeleton of a giant which measures 7 feet 8 inches in length. Also, a stone axe was discovered, which was huge. Again, we have the Smithsonian involved here. This is the time when they were starting really in full flow of going to all the different sites to make sure they recovered the bones. More examples here, 7 foot tall skeletons. Again, the Smithsonian getting involved. Again here, this is quite an interesting one actually, a 10 foot skeleton skull. But what's weird about this one, it's talking about technology. As corroborative proof, the members now was exhibiting the rusty and time-worn barrel of what appears to be an ancient gun weighing between 25 and 30 pounds, resembling a flintlock rifle. This, they said, was picked up beside the skeleton. These bones will be taken out of the cave at the earliest possible date and carefully packed and forwarded to the Smithsonian Institution. Yay! We've got like probably 130, maybe 150 reports that end with the Smithsonian. No, maybe, I think it might be 250 in fact.
Archaeology at that time was in a heyday. There was everybody that had a shovel was out trying to find something. But what's interesting is that the finding of these giant mummified bodies and giant fossils and bones, really you can't pin to any particular location. They were finding them in Greece, they were finding them in Italy, they were finding them in the Middle East, they were finding them in America. And even if you write off a few of those as perhaps a hoax or a misinterpretation of something else, you're still left with a tremendous amount of evidence to show that there were these giant beings at some point walking the earth.
I grew up in Anderson, Indiana, and I knew that we always had Mound State Park that I was visited myself as a kid and everything, but nobody ever said that there were any giant skeletons found there. And in this article, it talked about the Smithsonian being interested in making that area a national park because of the finds. And what they found was they broke into an area near the mound that inside were 6 giant skeletons that were in a sitting position. And when they broke into this, the fresh air got in and most of the skeletons just disintegrated into pieces except for at least 2 of the skulls. There was this 1883 newspaper article about how one of the historians in Anderson had one of the skulls and that another one was on display, which back in those days, as these skeletons were being found mostly in the late 1800s, they would be displayed in the museums all over the country. And then they just started disappearing because the Smithsonian would come in and take the bones, telling them that they wanted to investigate them, and they would never be returned. I even read an article that suggested that they had so many of these that they could no longer store them at the Smithsonian, and they would take them on barges out to the Atlantic Ocean and just dump them. The Smithsonian does not seem to want to come forward to answer any questions about this. There was one man during the period of time that most of these skeletons were being discovered, and that's because we were pioneers and we were building houses, and they were buried so shallow, 3 feet. You would find the bones at 3 feet only. And there was one man that was making the decision what was being done with these bones, and most of them were just gathered up. They would come out and pack them away, put them on a train, and send them back east, and then from there, most of them disappeared.
What happened to these skeletal remains? Were they stored away somewhere?
The last I'd heard was that some of these things were kept in like a forensic vault at the university. And then I ran into an anthropology student at Dunkin' Donuts and got into a conversation with her. And she said that within a year or maybe 2 years ago, they had sent all of these things off to the Smithsonian, at which time I just groaned because I've done reviews on 2 books. I can't come up with the titles right now, but they're both about the tremendous evidence that giant skeletons have been found all over the country, going back to the, I think, 1800s. And these were so often shipped off to the Smithsonian and never seen again, never heard of again.
There is evidence in the press of huge skeleton findings throughout America, but the Smithsonian claims no knowledge of them or any other oversized skeletons.
When you delve into this world, you start to figure out, well, how can the Smithsonian say that they don't have it because 4 papers said that they came and took them? Now, is their bookkeeping that bad that they can't find these things?
Of course not. They know exactly where these things are.
But if the Smithsonian does maintain a secret warehouse where incredible discoveries are hidden, the next question we must ask is, why? What purpose might they have for keeping such discoveries secret?
Why keep it a secret, David? If the Smithsonian confiscated all these artifacts, mummies and tablets and things like that, why keep it a secret?
Well, there's a number of reasons for that. Part of it is, and it's the same reason why a lot of things today would be kept a secret. They're engineering history, and today history is politically correct. It's not necessarily what really happened in the past.
Now, why keep it a secret, David?
That's the part that I don't know. I suppose it would change the course of our history, and I mean, if it showed that they were from the Egyptian area, let's say, of the world, common question would be, well, how did they get here? Maybe those questions don't want to be asked.
So I think, too, though, that if it echoes the Bible, they don't want people to know that.
Coupled with the tools and the metals that were found with them, I think it shows, it's a conundrum that maybe the powers to be don't want to answer.
Many of these finds, if authentic, would call much of established history into question. Not only the history of North America, but humanity itself. Such revelations could be very problematic for the powers that be, whose interest is in maintaining the status quo.
It appears at this point that the Smithsonian chooses to add, they want to keep history as we have been taught. They don't want things to change. And so things that are like an anomaly that don't fit in with their idea of history, those things get buried.
There is a very true quote by Orwell. He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past.
So there you go. That's a great quote, especially. He
Yeah.
controls the past controls the future. Wow.
Very true. I'm looking for, so they were saying, 10 foot tall and things like that. But I mean, we're talking, there have been way bigger ones than that found even. There is a femur bone on display. I was going to try to see if I could share my screen, or at least this tab here. Did that work?
Yeah, let me get it. I'm going to, let me open up something here real quick, just so that we have, where are you? Cody's screen. There we go.
So this is,
there it is.
And we don't know if this is real or not, but this is an old photo. I mean, this is circulated around for a long, long time. But there are reports, old archives, talking about 35, 40-foot tall giants and things like that remaining.
I just lost your vocal. I just lost your mic.
Display.
There it is.
I mean,
back.
who wielded this? Who could have wielded a sword at this size? More than 10 foot tall, and these, like,
yeah.
And then that spearhead,
and those
the
books. Yeah.
These books are huge. This one's huge. And then we had some of that petrified stuff. But I did want to take it back to this finger. This was an actual mummified finger with the fingernails, the bones. This was found. That's a 13-inch, so that's a foot-long finger. And then the footprints, of course. These giant swords. And then I want to show you this knife, but there was another. Oh, here's that finger. This is at the Creation Museum. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but they got a lot of biblical evidence and stuff. But that's a human femur bone right there.
Yeah.
So look how tall that giant would have been.
As big as he is, yeah. As big
that
as
bone there. Yeah. And then look at that femur bone.
Yeah.
That to me looks like a human's femur bone. I mean, I don't know, but it is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, it's crazy. Again, this is, we're looking right now in this particular, just focused on the bones, basically, bones of the giants. But what else is there? That's the question. Like, what else? What other history is buried? And again, I thought it was very interesting. They want to control history because they want to remove any biblical accounts. And I think that's the bottom line for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how many believers will not embrace that. Like, they'll think, oh no, they wouldn't do that, and yet we're seeing it time and time again. The devil is the master of deception. The Bible says there's no truth in him. He's the father of lies. And so that's what he does. He's very gifted at that. He deceives. he perverts, and so of course he's going to pervert history. And so that, like you said, so many people will think, well, no, the biblical account is just so crazy. And yet now we're finding out day by day that it's being proven correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, immediately he tried to deceive in the garden. The moment that God's creation of humanity was placed here, the serpent started trying to deceive immediately. And the Grand Canyon stuff. Oh, they've got somebody, and it would be cool if maybe sometime we can try this. But on one of the videos I watched on the Smithsonian, they called them and asked them about this guy that was mentioned in the video, the guy who was going and making all these discoveries for the Smithsonian. They said, no one by that name has ever worked here. There has never been anything found that the Smithsonian hasn't made public and displayed. There's no cover up. And it sounded so scripted. And when they called, they got transferred to this lady. And then that lady gave the spiel, and he said, "Oh, it sounds like you've said this all before." And she goes, "I get calls so many a week or so many a year or something like that. I don't know." But she read over a script of "There's nothing to see here." She was trained to do this, and it's like,
Talking
man,
points.
Smithsonian is the white lab coat of museums. And
they have a lot of clout over all the other museums as well. That's the other thing. Like, it's not just the Smithsonian. I mean, the Smithsonian is giving the narrative to all of the other museums as well. And so, because it's the national museum. So, remember, the museums are government owned. And so the government has its narrative. I saw, it was a documentary, and I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was a mammoth. This family found it, and so they started uncovering it, and they did all the work, and got it all uncovered, and they show the Smithsonian coming in and grabbing it from them, and it's a documentary, it was their experience, and never to be seen again. Just who knows why, but that's And these are just bones and that kind of history, but what else? That's I keep thinking, what else is there? What is there? A 30-foot giant? We see the things you just showed, and when we think about the Nephilim and we think about the biblical account, and we wonder about how our history is, again, we're supposed to be evolving, right? And it doesn't seem to be. How about that comment where they found the flintlock gun that weighed 27 pounds? That's interesting.
Yeah. And in the Grand Canyon, they were finding like catacombs and secret chambers, secret areas, and they're finding armor made out of titanium, copper, bronze, before the Bronze Era. They're finding weapons and all this stuff that was crafted and made and forged in fire, like these insane things that way before their time. And it's all off limits. You can't.
Right. Yeah, they cut off the Grand Canyon. That you can't go see that.
Yeah, you can't go. You can't explore. All right, here's what's weird. There have been people who've offered. They want to go explore. They want to rappel down. They want to have their fun. They want to go explore. The government will not let them. They say, "Come on, I'll sign a waiver. I will sign a waiver that says that if anything were to happen to me, then you are not liable. If I die, even you are not liable." And they say, "No, it's still too dangerous." But it's like, okay, if that's too dangerous, and this is what they said in the video, but that I watched about it. They said, if that's too dangerous, why is skydiving legal? Why is bungee jumping legal? Why can we do anything else that as long as we sign a waiver, we can do it? But when it comes to the Grand Canyon, the government just cares about us so much that they don't want us to get hurt, even if we sign our waivers. It just reeks of a cover-up. If there was nothing to hide yet, which this... this means that there's still something there to be found. You know, if they're still not letting people go, they know that they probably haven't even scratched the surface of all the history that they can find there.
Yeah, and just think about how about valuables like gold and all these other things. What's, how much of that's there? It's just like Antarctica. Yeah, here you can't explore it, and it's like, who controls that? Like, why? That just is crazy. Like, why do you get to say that?
Yeah. And it's so wild because, and when we started, they used to, there was a little bit of stuff out there, and it was almost like they left it out there because they're like, oh, well, no one's really asking any questions. Like, maybe someone will skim across it, whatever. They're not going to think anything of it. But the moment that, like, I think, Antarctica really became a hot topic and hot spot, they went onto Google Earth, deactivated all the Street View photographs and stuff on there, except for a very select few. Because you used to be able to go to Google Earth and like hit that Street View and like go down and like look around in Antarctica, and you still can in some places, and there's still weird stuff to see there. Like, I kid you not, there was this one, and I need to find it again, but you go down in Antarctica and you look, and there's a big, like, ancient pirate ship out on the water in a modern photograph, and it looks like the Flying Dutchman's ship or something. It looks like an old pirate ship, and it's just out there on the water. You can see it kind of faintly in the in like the fog on this image, and there's some other weird stuff. But when people started going down there and looking at that stuff, they started taking more of that stuff away. But you'll say these things like, oh, Antarctica's off limits, you can't go there, and then people will argue and say, yes, you can. I have a friend who went and all this stuff. But the thing is, yeah, they have these little regulated trips, and it's going to cost you anywhere from $5,000 to $35,000, yes, to even do it. And then you go and you're on a guide. You can't go beyond a certain place, and they watch you the whole time. They're right there on it, and that's not exploring, though. That's just going on a guided tour that they've scoped out the area. They know there's nothing to be seen. Yeah, it's just a little tour, and then they, mainly those tours happen on a little island. It's not even all the way to Antarctica, but it's a little island right outside Antarctica, and you won't believe the name of it. It's called Deception Island.
Oh my God!
And you can go over there to Deception Island and click on. Yeah, you click on some of the little things, and you'll see tourists in their little red jackets all over Deception Island.
Yeah, I was thinking that the narrative is that they have to tell us, right? They have to show us, and yet we have the Indiana Jones movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they show the huge warehouse where the Ark of the Covenant was stored, which is really interesting. So like if the Smithsonian does have a huge underground warehouse, they told us.
Yep, clear government warehouse on that. And then we're finding out about the underground, underground tunnels that have been there, the DUMBs, deep underground military bases that have been around for God knows how long. So, I mean, even if they had to store something, what if the Smithsonian in D.C., what if it has a whole entire underground city layer where just all that stuff gets stored and hidden away?
Yeah, there's been lots of movies.
We need another big...
National Treasure was another one. It's just interesting. It's great movies, but you wonder, is there a lot of truth in there?
Yeah, they do tell us through things. Yeah. We need another big Freedom of Information Act, but we should call it Freedom of History Act.
Yeah.
And have just get freedom of learning about real history. Yeah. And it's crazy too. You look at the education system and all the schools around the United States. You'll move to a different place, and you would think, oh yeah, in my public school we read this book or that book, and it's like, oh okay, yeah, but we read. No, it's no different. Like you move from Colorado down to Missouri, and you guys all read the same books in each grade. Diary of Anne Frank was one of them. Everyone reads the exact same historical books, and that's weird too, because that means that through the education system, they're giving you the history they want you to know. But then
you study the same individuals, the same theorists. You study the same things, and you never get the other guy that no one's heard of. Like no one brings out anything that's new, and that's the problem. I was with someone today, and it was he was telling me the story of a young man that was supposed to have a football scholarship, and he went down to the college and found out he had a partial scholarship. He had to fill out some more stuff. So by the time it was all said and done, he got there and he wasn't even on the football roster. So he just said, forget it. And I said, well, he God spared him from the educational system, which is, it's sad to think that, but there's so much that's just an agenda, and so much that's not been, we don't teach people to explore. We don't teach people to question. We just teach people to recite. And that's to me the issue. We say that we're teaching them to think. We have to teaching them to think what you want them to think.
Yeah. And they hire all super left-leaning professors, and most kids who go to college these days, they leave left-leaning. There's not a lot of. I even talk to college kids nowadays. They go, and majority of kids who do go to college, I mean, they're kind of whether they know it or not, subliminally indoctrinated to be more leftist, more left-leaning, more liberal, and things like that. And it's I mean, obviously you got a few that fight back. I've seen like videos of people going to those campuses and exercising free speech and doing things like that. But it's always been that way. We're noticing it in the college and everything, but elementary was like that. School in general, public school is just, that's the way it is. It's an indoctrination camp. Kids do learn valuable things, but when you leave, you realize that the valuable things you learned, you might use, math in life. You might use maybe a little bit of sociology, a little bit of psychology that you got to do in 9th grade.
Yeah.
But then after that, you look at all the other things you learned, and you're like, you find out it's untrue, and it's like, well, how can I use any of this?
Right. Yeah, it's really sad. I was thinking just the other day. I was thinking about Genesis. It talks about Adam and Eve, and they obviously they fell, right, and the devil always does this. The devil got them to question the validity of God's word. He denies the word of the Lord. And remember, in the tree that was in the garden, he said, can you have this? They said, well, we can have all the trees but this one that's in the center of the garden, because God said if we eat that one, we'll surely die. And he said, well, no, you won't really die. You'll just be like God, which they were already like God. And I was thinking, this whole social media, people wanting to be influencers, and yet we already are. He's tempting us with, because we are the salt, we are the light. We are already supposed to be influencers, but now we're there. The devil shifted us to be influencing something else, and I just thought it was pretty interesting how that whole, and it's such a huge thing. Like there's kids that's what they want to be. Back when we were going, or when I was going to school, you might want to be a doctor or dentist or whatever, but now people want to be an influencer, and yet the Lord has already created us to be influencers. We're just not influencing.
Yeah. And man, it's crazy too. You look at TikTok, and the ones who want to influence the right way in the direction of truth. The powers that be, they want to demonetize them, and they want to censor them, and but then the mindless content, the stuff that's just, I think it's called TikTok, because that's what the clock does when you're wasting time scrolling on it and seeing all the garbage. The idea of an influencer, a successful one nowadays, is someone who's just dancing in front of the camera, just
doing something stupid.
You know what I mean? And
eating laundry detergent.
Kids want to gravitate toward that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, exactly. Like just insane things. And that's what gets clicks. That's what gets views. And that's what's going to get you your 1 million followers if you just follow along with this, But I am thankful though that there's this wave of truth that's happening right now that, I mean, there's nothing that can stop it. Right. It's so apparent nowadays. It's just they try to play damage control a little bit and do the censorship, the AI, bots and things like that. But it's really not working. It's not covering up the truth fast enough.
Exactly, and it's not only not covering up the truth, but the truth is the people that are professing the real truth are multiplying, and that's what's really cool. Like I love reading. I'll see a post and I'll be drawn to the comment because I want to see, like they'll say, like here in our state, they'll say something like our governor just did this. He's very left leaning. He's one that's they're looking at for president on the left, and they'll say all this stuff, and I'll think, oh man, that's a bunch of crap. Then I'll look on the comments, and everyone else is saying the same thing. I mean, there's very few. Like it's probably 10%, maybe less, 5% are agreeing with the posts, and 95% are saying this is not true at all. And that's really amazing because it was just the opposite.
Such a good feeling to see the comment sections are leaning toward reality nowadays.
Absolutely.
It's an awesome feeling.
Well, it's interesting. Like, a couple weeks ago, we had our first whole encounter with bots, I think. So we had some on there. Tonight, if you were watching Facebook, I'm posting this later, but if you were watching Facebook, we got kicked off somehow. I'm not really sure what that's about.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, so it just told me it was done. But we just kept recording because we'll post it on Facebook here in a little bit. We'll post it back on Rumble again. But I don't know if that's, it might just be a coincidence, right? But it's interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and here's something that is sort of alarming, but now that they've got AI to kind of monitor things, like all they need to do is look for keywords. If they're like, okay, if someone says Smithsonian cover up lies all in the same video, we got to take it down. And they'll just have the algorithms do it for them.
Yeah. Or make sure no one views it, even if they don't take it down. Yeah,
and we almost got to create a new language, sometimes. Yeah. TikTok has to do it, a lot of the time. You have to say unalive, you have to say, just make up new words for certain trigger words that make up. Unalive is what they use for suicide or death or whatever, guilt. You can't say those words.
Wow.
You can't say chemtrails. You can't even search chemtrails on TikTok. You go to search it, and I'll show you what you get. Okay, chemtrails, search. Okay. Says
no results.
No results found. This phrase may be associated with behavior or content that violates our guidelines. Promoting a safe and positive experience is TikTok's top priority. For more information, we invite you to review our community guidelines.
It would seem to me that the safe part would be not having chemtrails.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you were about safety and health and positive experience, why are we breathing this stuff?
Yeah.
Why aren't you guys trying to help expose this thing? But yeah, it's wild. Right when I pull it up, there's a TikTok video of a guy saying the F word.
Of course.
Out loud.
And they'll let that
Hopefully
one
the
go
mic
through.
didn't pick that up. Oh yeah, you can say that all you want.
Just don't say suicide.
The world we live in.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, they banned my video. I had a video, a poem I wrote about suicide, but it was about how I had attempted a few times and God, brought me out of it. Well, they don't look at the whole thing, the general message of it, but they ban it. And they don't let me put it back up. They completely ban it and say, "Oh, it promotes suicide." It's like, no, watch till the end. It actually doesn't. It's the opposite. But they don't care. They don't care about context or anything like that.
Yeah, which is part of the problem with the whole thing. The whole track and trace. Since the Patriot Act, we've got a lot of eyes on us, ears on us. The other day we were just. Pam told me something, that we were looking into product, and I was in a different room with her on her computer, and then the next time I opened up mine, there it was. It's unbelievable. Well, I think next week we're going to hit the AI.
Listen to everything.
Yeah. Next week we'll hit the AI, and maybe we'll further discuss how AI is problematic. Some people don't think it is. We were talking to our daughter not too long ago, saying she wanted to download it, and we have control over that. And I said no, because you're going to use it to write the papers that you need to write, and you need to know how to do it. You need to learn it. You need to not just spew something out. You need to do it. So a lot of issues with it.
Yeah, it's a creativity robber, and people lean and rely on that, and they forget how to be creative. Songwriting, it's incredible what it can do. It's impressive, but it takes away from the songwriter.
That's the goal.
I'll let it engineer my audio, I'll let it mix and master it or something, but I don't want it to write the songs.
There's people there's pastors that use it to write their sermons. That's scary. So, well, anyway, we're glad you guys hung with us tonight. You may be seeing this on a tape, a recorded version, because we had a little bit of issue with Facebook tonight, and I couldn't even get on the Rumble tonight when I started the live. So here we go. Something's interesting, but it'll be up there, and we just are thankful that. Just look into some of this stuff yourself. When you see these, right now, the big controversy is that history is being removed from Smithsonian. Well, it'd be nice if it really was removed from the Smithsonian, brought back to the reality, but that's not what they're meaning. But, so the Smithsonian's not the great thing that we should worship. There's a lot more going on there.
Yep.
Hallelujah. Well, any other comments, Cody, before we close?
No, just do your own research and have your discernment there too, because even in research these days, there's a lot of rabbit trails that try to fact check you and send you off in other directions. So just
absolutely,
find a good search engine that doesn't control all of the things that pop up. Dig deeper too. The first results will always pop up and kind of try to lead you astray, and dig down a little deeper and get to the bottom of things.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're gonna promote the ones that are anti-truth for the most part. So, all righty. Well, we're glad you're here. We'll close in a word of prayer, and Cody, you want to lead us out, and we'll.
Yep. Father, thank you so much for being here with us, being our guide, and giving us eyes to see and ears to hear. Let your Spirit guide us throughout this week and see your truth.
Yeah.
And let those who haven't heard the gospel, let them hear it in a way that makes it click. Let them have eyes and ears, and we're seeing this big wave of people coming to Jesus and understanding that he was exactly who he said he was, your son, and that he did exactly what the word says he did, and that was die for us in our place, and is that atonement that we can have that perfect relationship with you, Father, and just protect us throughout the week so we can meet here again Monday evening. In your precious name, amen.
Man, see you guys next time.